implementation part is not visible to the user, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
this is the abstract view. Similarly, in case of database management system, you see there are different levels of abstraction: physical level, logical level, and view level. Before discussing this slide, you can see this one. View of data, three level architecture. You can see here, this is your internal schema. This part, internal schema means physical level. That is just to store, you say that is, this is just your name having 20, then department is again character type having 20 characters, employee ID, struct date. So how this employee is stored physically in at your hard drive. For example, you can say in case of structure, how data is stored sequentially. Yes, whenever you say you declare a structure, how data is stored in the memory. Yes, sequentially.
Yes, ma'am.
Then that means here you can say 20 bytes for name, 20 bytes for department, 4 bytes for employee ID, then date. In case of date, you can say how much, let us suppose 10 bytes. So then one pointer variable. Then all this is called physical level. And at the logical level, just to define, that is, these are just, you can say, the attributes that you want to store. That is, you want to store name, you want to store employee ID, you want to store department name, date of birth, etc. So this is called logical level. And view level means from the whole attributes, whole set of attributes, you require only one or two attributes. For example, you can say this is the view 1 and this is the view 2. In view 1, you see here what you are getting. You are getting employee number. Then that means this employee ID has been converted into employee number. Then age. How will you get this age? You have date of birth, you have today's date in the system. So just by applying subtract operation from the today's date from the date of birth, you can get age of the person, then department name. Then that means this whole information is stored in the Dbms database. But from this database, you are getting some part of the information. This is just one part of the view. In other words, you can say if you have 10 attributes of any object and you want to get only 3 or 4 attributes, that is called view 1, and other 3 or 4 attributes for other application, that is view 2. So then that means your data is stored physically in the system. How it is stored, either using the concept of sequential allocation or linked list allocation, that is called physical level. At the logical level, you just describe only what are the attributes that you want to store, what is the data type, etc. That is called logical level. And view level means whatever you want to see, that is just your view level. So you can see here, physical level describes how a record is stored. Logical level means describes data stored in the database and the relationship among the data. Relationship among the data means, for example, as I have already discussed in the library management project, that is, if you have three files, one is the book file, one is the student file, and one is the issue file. A book can be issued to a student if and only if corresponding student information is present in the student file. Then that means there is a relationship between this issue file and the student file. So logical level describes data stored in the database. How data is stored in the database? That is called physical level. That is whether the data is stored sequentially or using the concept of linked list or hashing, any other mechanism. That is physical level detail. What data is stored and what are the attributes? That is called logical level. View level means application program hide details of the data types. View can also hide information such as an employee's salary for security purposes. That is, in this case, you can say that is if you have 10 attributes, then depending upon different views, you can give access to the different persons to the different number of attributes. For example, here just it has been said that is employees salary cannot be seen by each and every person. So then that means this salary information is has been hidden from access. So just you can say whenever you say DBMS, there are different levels of abstraction. Physical level means how data is stored. Logical level means what type of data is stored in the database and what are the relationship between the data. And view level means what actually the user sees the data. So that is called view level. So at the view level, different type of users can be there. For example, you can say administrator can be there, user can be there, student can be there. So depending upon the type of user, different views of the data can be accessed from the same database, right? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
इतनी देर में क्यों रिस्पॉन्ड करते हो? मेरे को एक बात बताओ आप, हैं? क्या क्लियर नहीं हो रहा आपको?
क्लियर है.
Okay, so you can see this thing now. This is physical level, this is logical level, and this is the view level. I think from this diagram, everything should be clear to you. Physical level, logical level, view level. Then that means for the same database, there can be different views, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Now, next concept is instances and schemas. In case of DBMS, you will listen these two terms. One is instance and one is schema. In case of C++, what is, have you listened this term instance? Instance of a
Yes.
class?
Yes, ma'am. Objects को instance कहते हैं क्लास का.
हाँ, object को आप instance कहते हो. Why? What is the meaning of instance here in case of C++? Just say instance means a particular set of values. For example, if you say class student and there are 10 objects, then that means there are 10 instances of class student, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So in
Yeah.
case of database, instance means data present in the database at a particular instant of time. For example, if I say railway reservation system at this time, that is at 2:47, some type of data will be there, but it may be at 2:50, data may be changed. Some passengers have booked their tickets, some passengers have cancelled their tickets, right? So then that means at each and every moment, data is changing.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can say instance means actual content of the database at a particular point in time. In case of database management system, you can say what is instance? It is the actual content of the database at a particular point in time. So just you can say it is similar to the value of a variable. For example, you declare int a. Here just you are declaring the type of a variable, that is it is of a type integer. But after that you will say a is equal to 10. Then that means you are assigning this value 10 to a. Then that means now this is instance of a. After that you say a is equal to 20. Now the value of a is 20. Then that means this is another instance of variable a. But in case of database, you can say when you are having centralized database for a particular application, database is changing at each and every time. So there are different instances of the database at different times. So this is about instance. What is schema? Schema is just declaring the type int a. So you can say a logical schema means overall logical structure of the database. Physical schema means overall physical structure of the database. Overall physical structure of the database means how that database has been implemented at the physical device. So this is not the part that we have to cover. We will majorly cover logical schema. That means this is just, you can say, lowest level of abstraction. Then that means you do not deal with the hardware level. We will not discuss all these concepts. These concepts, you can say, in other words, all these concepts you have discussed earlier in your earlier semester. That is, you can store the database either using the concept of arrays or using the concept of linked list, hashing. You have discussed all these things. So then that means how physically data is stored in the system, that is called physical schema. Logical schema means overall logical structure of the database. That means what type of information you want to store, how to define that type of information. You can see here the database consists of information about a set of customers and accounts in a bank and the relationship between them. Similarly, as we have discussed library management system, that is if you want to store this student information, book information and issue information, how will you define a database for this library management system? That is called your logical schema, the overall logical structure of the database. And physical schema means overall physical structure of the database, how that data is actually stored in your storage devices. Now next is mappings and data independence. Now again you can see here, I from this diagram again I think more concepts will be clear to you. You can see here internal. In this figure you can see here internal, conceptual and external. In other words, you can say this is view and this is logical
Logical.
and this is
Physical.
Physical.
physical, right? So you can see here physical data structures, B plus trees, hash tables, files, records, how data is actually stored in your hard disk. Conceptual means overall logical structure of the database. External means view level, how user sees that data, what type of data is required by the user. At different timings, user require different type of data. So you can see now this thing, mapping. Whenever you require some data, you will just write a query at the just, you can say, view level. So whenever you write a query at the view level, that query is first converted into your logical level, and from that logical level it is converted into the physical level. But there is mappings. For example, what is the requirement of mapping? You can see, let us suppose your database is stored in your hard disk and you change the storage mechanism. So when you change the storage mechanism, should you change this conceptual schema and external schema also? No, there is no need to change conceptual and external schema, because these conceptual and internal mapping, that is logical to physical mapping, makes it possible to change the physical schema or logical to change the logical schema without changing the physical schema, and to change the physical schema without changing the logical schema. So you can say this mapping defines the correspondence between three levels. The process to convert a request from external level and data stored is called mapping. The mapping defines the correspondence between three levels, that is external to logical mapping and logical to physical mapping. So from this mapping, the concept of data independence is there. What is data independence? You can say the ability to modify a scheme definition in one level without affecting a scheme definition in a higher level. Excuse me. Just 1 second. Just go through this slide. I am coming again. Yes, students. Yes, students.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Data independence is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can say data independence is just ability to modify a scheme definition in one level without affecting a scheme definition at a higher level. Physical data independence means just you can say the ability to modify the physical schema without changing the logical schema. As I have already explained, that is if you change your hardware to store the data, then there is no need to change your logical structure. Similarly, logical data independence means ability to change logical schema without changing external schema is called logical data independence. Then that means if you want to add or remove some attributes in your database, you can easily do that thing. So it is very easy when you implement your database using the database management system. If you want to store any data using DBMS rather than file management system. Now see this one example. This is your relational model. Whenever we say about database, then basically we deal with relational database management system. Yes, what is the meaning of relation? Any student? In case of relational database management system, relation means table. Then that means all the data is stored in various tables. So example of tabular data in relational models. You can see here IDs, names, department name, and salary. So you can see here, this is just, you can say, instructor table. This is just instructor ID. This is the name of the instructor. This is department name, and this is your salary of a particular instructor. So again, you can see here, this is the instructor table and this is the department table. So rather than storing the data in the files, in case of DBMS, we will store the data in the form of tables. Now next is database languages. The database languages that we will discuss in this course is basically structured query language. Structured query language is called SQL. So for majorly used databases, Oracle, MySQL, you use the same structured query language. Structured query language is further of two types. One is the data definition language and one is data manipulation language. Data definition language is just used to express you can say logical schema of the database, how to create your tables. And data manipulation language is used to assess the information, to insert the information, to delete the information, and to assess the information from the database. So in your lab part, you will basically cover these Ddl and Dml commands. So a brief introduction of Ddl and Dml I will give here. First is the data definition language. Data definition language means just you are defining your database. First is just you want to define your this table, that is instructor table. So for this you will see here one command is there, that is create table. Create is your a command of DDL type. Table is again just all the information in case of database management system is stored in the form of tables. So you are creating here a table. This is your table name, and these are the attributes name. Attribute name is just, you can say, data members, as you have in case of C++, you say data members, and here I will say properties of this instructor table or attributes of this instructor table. So ID, its data type, then name, its data type, then department name, its data type, salary, its data type. So when you will discuss SQL, at that time you will see there are various data types for SQL. For example, you can see here char means it is having fixed number of characters, 5. Varchar means variable number of characters. Maximum is 20. Numeric means 8, and floating point 2 decimal point. Right? So a number of other data types are also available, like date, etc. So that you will cover in your lab part. This is just, you can say, how to create tables in case of DBMS. Now, DDL compiler generates a set of table templates stored in a data dictionary. What is data dictionary? Just, you can say, it is used to store metadata. What is metadata? Data about data. Then that means if you want to see how many tables are present in your database, what is overall structure of your database. So all this information you can get from your data dictionary. So data dictionary contains information about data. So you can say data dictionary contains metadata, that is data about data. So it contains structure of the database, that is database schemas, integrity constraints. Integrity constraints, again, as I have already told, that is there are three type of integrity constraints. One is the domain integrity constraint, one is the entity integrity constraints, and one is the referential integrity constraints. So these different type of constraints again we will discuss in detail in coming chapters. Then authorization means if you are defining this data base or this table, what users, which type of users can access this data, who can access what, all this information is also stored in the data dictionary. So you can see here your SQL is basically of two parts. One is the data definition language and one is data manipulation language. Definition means just you are describing the structure of your database. What type of tables are present, how many tables are present, what are the relationship between different tables. So DDL is just, you can say, just about, you can say, creation of database. And manipulation means first you have created some table. For example, you have created this table. Now after creation of this table, you will insert the information. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
For example, here you have created this table. Initially when you will create this table, there will be a table having zero number of rows, only attribute names will be there. After that you will insert the information. First you will insert first row, then second row, then third row, then fourth row, fifth row. Then that means this is just done by your data manipulation language. That means data definition means just your overall deals with the structure of the database, and actually the language that deals with the data, that is called data manipulation language. That is just, you can say, insertion, deletion, updation, all this is done using data manipulation language. So in case of data manipulation language, you can say will be different queries like insert, delete, update, and then select. Even the select query is basically the major part that you have to cover in your lab part. Because first whenever you create any database is created and you have inserted the information, but you want to get the information efficiently. So what are the various commands so that you can get information quickly and efficiently? That is just by using different type of select commands. So in your lab part, first you will cover about this DDL, data definition language. In this case, what are the different commands? Create, then alter table. That is just, you can say, first you have whenever created some table, at that time you just forget to enter one column name and you want to add one more column, then you can do that with the help of alter table command. Then drop means you want to drop some column or you want to drop some table. So all these commands are covered in data definition language. In data manipulation language, you will cover insert, delete, update, and select. And in case of select, you can say this is basically, select is basically called query language. That means just you write some query, that is this type of information you require from the database. So you can say here data manipulation language is the language for assessing and manipulating the data organized by the appropriate data model. DML is also known as query language. There are two types of language. One is the pure DBMS language and one is the commercial. Pure DBMS is just, you can say, this is for your query optimization, relational algebra, calculus, tuple calculus, and domain calculus. All these three types of query language we will cover in your theory part. And commercial is SQL, that is most widely used commercial language that you will cover in your lab part. So this SQL is basically your data manipulation language, but simply you can say it is consist of both DDL and DML. So you can say SQL is the most widely used commercial language. It is to be able to compute complex function. SQL is usually embedded in some high level language. जैसे कल मेरे को किसी स्टूडेंट ने बोला था that she has done programs using ODBC and JDBC drivers. She has embedded this query language in Java, right? किसी ने बोला था ना कल? Yes, who was that student? सिंपली सी, आपने जब आप रेलवे रिजर्वेशन करवाते हो, जब कोई भी रिजर्वेशन करवाते हो, तो अब आपके पास फ्रंट एंड क्या होता है? यस, हाउ, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ फ्रंट एंड यू विल गेट? Yes, students, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, whenever you do any type of reservation, what type of front end you get? किस तरह का फ्रंट एंड आपको मिलता है?
मैम डेस्टिनेशन और सिलेक्ट करने का होता है.
अवेलेबल सीट्स होती हैं हमारे पास, डिफरेंट वो होते हैं
दैट
रूट्स.
मीन्स वो जो फ्रंट एंड एक फॉर्म बेस्ड होता है ना?
यस मैम.
देन दैट मीन्स अब वहां पे जो भी आप इंफॉर्मेशन फिल करते हो, उसके बाद आप सबमिट करते हो, तो अब वो जो इंफॉर्मेशन आपने फिल की, जो सबमिट की, तो वो इंफॉर्मेशन कहाँ क्वेरी की फॉर्म में डाटाबेस से इंफॉर्मेशन असेस होती है कि नहीं होती? जैसे आप यही देखना चाहते हो कि जलंधर टू अमृतसर कौन कौन सी ट्रेन हैं, तो आप सोर्स फिल करोगे, डेस्टिनेशन फिल करोगे. आपके यू जस्ट गेट ए फॉर्म in which you will just fill the information source and destination, right? And submit and date of traveling. After that, when you submit this information is sent to the database in the form of a query language. तो अब ये जो फ्रंट एंड की डिजाइनिंग है, दैट इज डन यूजिंग एनी हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज, नॉट डीबीएमएस लैंग्वेज. दैट मीन जो आपके पास फॉर्म्स आते हैं वो किसी हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज में रिटन होते हैं. डेटाबेस ओरिएंटेड प्रोजेक्ट बनाना है ना, तो उसमें यू हैव सीन दीज टू थिंग्स. वन इज द फ्रंट एंड and one is the back end. At the front end you use some high level language like Python, Java, PHP, HTML, any type of language. and at the back end you use some type of database, and there is a connection between front end and back end with the help of these APIs, that is application program interface, called ODBC and JDBC drivers. ये अगर आप नेक्स्ट सेमेस्टर में जावा पढ़ोगे, आई थिंक जेडीबी से आप उसमें कवर करोगे, बट एट द एंड ऑफ कोर्स मैं अभी आपको एक सिंपल सा प्रोग्राम कि जावा में किस तरह से आप डाटाबेस के साथ कनेक्टिविटी करके अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स बना सकते हो, दैट आई विल आल्सो कवर इन द लास्ट ऑफ दिस subject, right? And in the lab portion you will cover only this backend, that is just how these queries are performed. So this is all about, you can say, data definition language and data manipulation language. Now one slide is there that is about data models. So what are different data models? You can say a collection of tools for describing data, data relationship, data semantics, and data constraints. That is what type of data you want to store, what are the various relationship between the data, what is the semantic, what is the meaning of that data, and what are the various constraints on that data. Constraints means what are the restrictions that you want to store the data. Incorrect data should not be stored in the database. For incorrect data means, for example, you can see roll number. Roll number, each and every student has a unique roll number.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Then that means there when you store this roll number or id, the same id should not be present in two rows. That means this is a constraint, this is a restriction, that is two rows cannot have the same id or same roll number. In case of student table you can say two students cannot have same roll number. This is a particular type of constraint. Similarly, another type of constraint that we have discussed in last lecture, that is your account balance should be greater than 0. There should be no value in the salary or balance with negative value. So these are different type of constraints that you can define with the help of these data models. So a data model provides a way to describe the design of a database at physical, logical, and view level. There are four different type of data models. Relational model that we have discussed today, that is just we store the data in the form of tables. Whenever you store the data in the form of tables, that is just you can say relational model. Entity relationship data model is just it is used for database design. That is before actually implementing database, you first design how many tables should be there. So this is can be done with the help of entity relationship data model. Next is object-based data models. As you have already done object-oriented programming language. Similarly, whenever you want to store that type of information that is object-based, then you can use object-based data models rather than relational model. And one more type of data model is there, that is semi-structured data models. That is just you can say XML language, extensible markup language. Just you can say as you have listened this term XML.
Yes, ma'am.
For what purpose it is used?
Ma'am, for enhancing our view of data.
Just you can say when your database is of not of same type. That is, for example, if you want to store the information about figures, if you, now your figure, if it is a triangle, then it has three sides. But if it is a circle, then it is having one radius. If it is a square, it is just you have to store only one side. Then that means information, just you want to store the information about figure, but figure can be of different types. Then that means when data is same but having different type of attributes, semi structured data models. And At that time, rather than using relational model, for example, here you can see in this case, you can see id fixed. That means there are 4 attributes. Then you can use your relational model. But if your attributes are not fixed, sometimes having 1 attribute, sometimes having 2 attributes, sometimes having 3 attributes, at that time, rather than using relational model, you use semi-structured data model. At that time, you cannot use SQL, structured query language. Rather than using structured query language, use XML, that is extensible markup language, right? Yes. Yes, it is clear or not?
Clear, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
कोई response तो दिया
Ma'am,
करो.
what is data semantics?
Data semantic is just, you can say, meaning of data. What is the meaning of data? One thing is syntax, one is semantic. Semantic means meaning of data. What is the purpose of that data? Right? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is all about today's lectures. In today's lectures, we have discussed about just, you can say, views of database system, level of abstraction, instances and schemas, then mappings and data independence, then about data models, relational model, DDL language and DML language. So in next lecture, we will discuss about some more concepts about storage manager, query processing, and transaction manager. And after that, your first chapter will be complete. That is just, you can say, introduction of the database system. You can see this was your first chapter, that is overview of dbms system versus file system, database system concept and architecture, database schema and instances, data independence, database language, data definition language, and dml, overall database structure. So in tomorrow's lecture, your first unit will be completed, right?
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम।
Yes.
मैम आपने जो बुक प्रेफर की थी उसका एक बार नाम बता दीजिए दोबारा।
हाँ रजय, बुक मैं अभी आपको बताती हूँ। यहाँ पे यू कैन सी दिस वन, कोर्थ Silvershire Sudarshan. Even these slides are from that book. You can see in this slide, Database System Concept, 6th edition, Silvershire's Court at Sudarshan, right?
ओके मैम।
You can download the PDF of the book. I think it is freely available on the net.
यस मैम, यस मैम।
Yes, any other doubt? No doubt? If no doubt is there, then I'm just downloading the attendance. Just one thing. Okay, if no doubt is there, you can leave the class.
थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.